Hey YouTube, for this week's Pagan Blog Project post, it's got a little bit of a backstory. The first week for A, I did the Amulets of the Goddess, which is a sort of divination method. This is the book that goes to it. There are these discs with various goddess imagery. There's sacred symbols, goddesses, and sacred animals. This particular set was incomplete, and I made the two that were missing. They were my mom's. So I made a couple. Like this one's the Nile River Goddess. It's not perfect, but it works. So since I did that post, I've been drawing at least one every day. Some days it's been a little bit more, and using them as you would a tarot card or runes or whatever oracle that you would use. And I was trying to come up with week B, 2B, and I went to draw one as advice, inspiration, or whatever. As I reached into the bag, I thought of the word belonging. And the goddess that I pulled out was the Venus of Willendorf. It calls it the Willendorf goddess. And its keyword is belonging. And then the next one that I pulled for the next day was listening. So I kind of don't feel like I had much choice in what this topic was. I had choice, but yeah. So I'm going to try and go in the context of the somewhat emphasis that there is in the pagan community of belonging to a group, or the you don't belong here, you can't use that. I have not taken any notes or anything, so I'm kind of winging it, but hopefully everything will work out fine. So, as a solitary, I've been solitary my whole practice. Now I have a group that I am working with, but it is open to all paths, and we want to continue to have it be that way. It's not, yeah, everyone's welcome. But as being solitary for all of my particular practice, you read books and there's a lot of emphasis on, even if they're books aimed towards solitaries, and I'll go into one of the ones that comes up as an example. I mean, you get Buckland's Big Blue, and it's based, it's more coven based in general. It has great stuff in there, but it is made as, I don't want to say guidebook, but it is there with a coven based practice in mind. Now you get ones that are aimed toward solitaries, obviously Cunningham, Ravenwolf stuff. I know, say what you want about her, but most of us have read it, and there's a lot of emphasis on, like, you can totally do this your own, but try coven practice, it's awesome. The problem is that you can be somebody who started research at around 12, 13 years old, continued on research, be in your 30s, and still not have come across any group that is a specific to your path. There's no, I don't even know if there's any covens in the area. There is one guy who leans towards Gardnerian, but I don't think he's involved in any coven work. Supposedly, there is a Gardnerian coven in a neighboring city/town. I haven't looked into it. I don't have the time, ability, or the desire to sort of start over at this point. A lot of times online, there's this, I've seen on a couple of different message boards / questions that are asked, and someone will say, well, there's a coven, but they're 2 hours away from me. To which will be followed up by a response of, well, that's not bad. I traveled 3 hours for my coven when I first started. Good for you. Not everybody can do that. There's jobs, there's life in general. I have 5 children, so the idea of taking up a trip we have a hard enough time going to visit family, and they're only 2.5 hours away. So the gas money that would happen from that, I know that generally speaking, people think that, well, if it's meant to be, it'll happen. I just think of it as sort of unfair, because maybe it is meant to be, and you're meant to be kind of on your own. Even within the other pagan paths, there's a emphasis on belonging to a group or doing some sort of group practice. And some instances, there's not really a need for it other than to make it a little bit easier when you're learning. But in some paths, they're in their infancy, and everyone's kind of making it up as they go along. So it's something that I understand why it is sort of emphasized, because group work is cool. It's neat, it's fun, it has a different element. Obviously, I don't have any coven work under my belt personally, but group workings, yes. It's just, there's things that are differences. I don't know. There's just a emphasis on the belonging too, and if you don't follow steps 1, 2, and 3, you do not get to claim title X. And I do understand, especially for like high priestess, things of that nature, your first, your second, your third degrees, those are earned within that group. But that's only, they generally speaking only apply to that group or that tradition. If you're a 2nd degree Alexandrian, that means that you are a 2nd degree Alexandrian within the Alexandrian tradition. You can't go over to the Gardnerian tradition and be like, I'm a 2nd degree Alexandrian. They're like, you're starting from the beginning. And that is because you're learning that specific tradition. And they have practices, and I don't want to go with beliefs. It's mainly practices that they do, and they're the oath-bound material and those things that are only, you have to go through steps 1, 2, and 3 to claim title X for that specific thing. What bugs me is when you get into the Wicca as a whole, including the eclectic Wicca that is not coven-based. I don't care for the term Neo-Wicca. It really just, I just don't like the way it sounds. I think there are plenty of other qualifiers in there that there isn't a need for a neo. I don't even refer to myself as neo-pagan. It's generally just pagan. I know it's new. It's not what it was thousands of years ago. It is different than what it is today, but I don't care for that whole neo sounding thing. Personal quirk maybe, but whatever. But within the recon traditions, I've noticed on some of the boards, it's like, well, you can't claim to be a reconstructionist unless you're doing things exactly this way. And what's funny about some of those is they have very little to be building on. They are having to make some things up as they go along. And you have your UPGs, your unconfirmed personal gnosis, and then your confirmed personal gnosis, whereas you'd have, if you had a kindred or a group where everybody experienced the same thing, that would be a confirmed personal gnosis. Or over time, one individual experienced something during a ritual or what have you, and then in through the woodwork come in other people saying, hey, yeah, I had that same experience happen with me, or something similar. Those are where you get your confirmed personal gnosis. Because it's talking about the individual. It's not something that was historically put in the books. And there's a lot of that historical information that is lost. For good. Until maybe we might find some archaeological evidence somewhere that might change that. But I'm not holding my breath. It might happen, it might not. So it's kind of best to just roll with it, I think, in that manner. With the amulets of the goddess, they talked about with the belonging to the earth, being one with your fellow humankind. Let's see. You've been called the Great Mother of belonging to you for comfort, to remind you that your presence counts. You are connected to all existence by virtue of being alive, by being yourself. And that's an interesting thing too, because we all are unique into ourselves. And even within coven structures, everyone has their own experience, even though you have the group. So, it is unique to you anyway, whether you belong to a group or not. It's still your own personal experience. And I know of plenty of people who've said that they do their coven work, and their coven work does not reflect in any way or group work, their personal workings. So I guess in the essence of belonging, you belong to the pagan community. You belong to your group that you may work with, or don't belong to a group that you work with. Hey, Minion. Mini. I've been trying to get him in a video forever. Minion. You gonna bark at yourself? No? Okay. He never comes up when excuse me, doing a video. But that was my challenge for this week, trying to get belonging to work. My husband and I have discussed this at length. It was one of the reasons he was saying that he doesn't care for the 9 noble virtues because they are just the basic word without having any context. And when I was saying, well, belonging, he's like, well, in what context? I'm like, well, I could do this, or I could go this way, or I could go this way. My main point, though, is that there is a lot of emphasis on belonging to a group, and for some, it just doesn't happen. Or you have to make it happen as being the one who initiates the process of getting a circle, or maybe not necessarily a coven, but a study group together. I know I've tried in the past. They didn't work. It was high school immaturity BS, but that was another topic I thought about. Bullshit. There's a lot of it that goes along in the community as a whole. But yeah, it might not happen. And you belong to the greater community even if you don't have a smaller community within. And that can be hard, especially if you're talking some of the Reconstructionist faith, where community is one of their key points in because you'd have your family first, and then you'd work towards your community, and then you would have... So if you don't have a pagan community, a local pagan community, you might be working with your whole community, whether they are Christian, Jewish, whatever. The point is coming together as more or less humanity in some ways. But I don't know. Just some thoughts. Like I said, I didn't make any notes or anything, and it is rather rambly, and I had my little distraction come up, but hopefully that gets the somewhat point across that while I understand the emphasis on the belonging to a group, it just might not be happening. That's pretty much it, I think. I may be redoing this because that may suck. So, bye.